Hi everyone, welcome to another Ashtown Creations tutorial. My name is Stephanie, and in this video we are making the Saltwater pouch by Needle and Anchor Patterns. This adorable little bag is a bonus pattern that you will receive when you purchase the Saltwater shoulder bag pattern. I've already recorded a video for the shoulder bag, so keep an eye out for the iCard up here. For both the exterior and the lining panels, the pattern has been written to accommodate either directional or non-directional prints. The exterior provides a really nice area, both front and back, for a fussy cut, focus print, or as I have done, an embroidery design. The lining of the bag can be made with many different materials: quilting cotton, water-resistant, waterproof canvas, or even laminated cotton, just to name a few. This would probably make a really cute kids' toiletry bag. The interior of the bag is also finished off with binding. Don't be afraid of binding. This is actually a really good bag to practice your binding skills. It doesn't take a huge amount of fabric. It sews up pretty quickly. Just remember, most people won't be turning your bag inside out to check out how well you did your binding. Just make sure to catch the binding all of the way around, and don't worry about puckers. Even a perfect binding will pucker once you have turned it right side out. I will add links for as many materials as I can in the description box below. I will also list the timestamps so you can jump to the section that you need. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and select the notification bell to be notified when new content is available. Please leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. Thank you again to Carissa from Needle and Anchor Patterns for allowing me to record this tutorial for you. All right, let's get sewing. All right, let's go through the pieces for the saltwater pouch. So I have directional because I put an embroidery design on this, on the exterior of the pouch. This is natural cork that I have embroidered a little hummingbird on. So this doesn't really make it directional, but to make it easier for me to embroider on, I have used the directional version. So I have two exteriors. If you're doing the non-directional fabric one, you would only have one exterior, but I have two because this is directional. I have two lining pieces. This is just a quilting cotton that I've interfaced with a woven interfacing, and if you can see it, I have applied my Decaville light to the lining piece because you really should not apply heat to cork. So those are the exterior and lining. I have two exterior gussets, same natural cork, and I have two lining pieces, that same quilting cotton interfaced with a woven interfacing, and then I have two gusset ends that are that are all cork, and for the lining, two lining pieces that are quilting cotton interfaced with a woven interfacing. For this, I also have my zipper. I'm using Zipper by the Yard, and I have two zipper pulls for this, and I also have my Ashtown Creations cork label. That is all the piece. Oh no, one more thing. I have some pre-made bias tape, extra wide double fold. It's a navy blue color for the lining because this is a we use binding on the inside. So that is all the pieces for the saltwater pouch. Let's get sewing. Well, since I decided to use the directional print for this pattern, even though mine's not directional, I still chose to do it that way. I need to join these pieces together. So I'm going to place them right sides together, matching up the long straight edge that's across from the rounded edge, and just put a couple clips in it. Oops. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the lining. So I'm going to place them right sides together, matching up the bottom. And now for both of the panels, I'm going to stitch them across at a 3/8 with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I've got it on a joining stitch. A 3.5 is my joining stitch. and a back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. And now I want to take the panels and open up, split the seam, butterfly the seam. So yeah, send each seam allowance at one to either side. And we are going to stitch along the seam on the bottom. And we'll do this for both. 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along that edge and setting it to a 5 stitch length. And I just stick my hand underneath, and with this finger I'm pushing it out flat and holding it with this hand. I'll have to do that a couple times along the seam. I'll go down, across, and back the other side, and I'll do it for both pieces. So if you started with fabrics that were the solid panel for the non-directional fabric, you wouldn't need to do this step. You could skip right past it. So now we're going to set this aside. Now we will work on the zipper gusset. So I've got my exterior piece and I'm putting it right sides up, and I'm taking my zipper tape. I don't put the slider on yet. I wait until after this part's done. It just makes it easier with the straight lines. And I'm going to match it up along the long edge of the zipper gusset piece. And I'm going to clip it in place. Alright, so now I'm going to baste it on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I've got it, just left it on my top stitching of 5. Needle down, and I'm going to sew all the way down to the other end and back stitching at both ends. Now I will take one of my lining pieces and place it face down on top of making a zipper sandwich. So I've got my exterior face up, my zipper face down, and my lining piece face down. I'm going to put a couple clips in it as well. And now I'm going to stitch this on as close to a 1/4 inch seam allowance as I can. Mine doesn't get completely in because of my presser foot. So I use a scant 1/4 of an inch. Now we want to press the lining away from the zipper, and now I'm going to press the exterior away from the zipper. I'm trying to match up the long edge and keeping the side edges matched up. So I'm going to put a couple clips in it. Now the instructions have us adding the other side before we top stitch. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch now. Hopefully that doesn't make a difference. I just want to keep these out of my way while I'm adding the other side. So I'm going to top stitch it with this 5 stitch length, and it's 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the exterior on the exterior panel side. This just helps it lie a little more flat while we're adding the other side. All right, there we go. So now the other side, we're repeating the same process. So I'm putting my exterior face up, my lining face down, or my zipper face down. I'm going to try and match the edges here. My zipper isn't quite long enough, so I want to try and keep at least these even. It will help in the long run. So I'm going to put clips in it, same as I did before, and then I'm going to baste this on. I'm going to add the lining piece and top stitch. The one thing I forgot to mention when I top stitched the other side was that we want to pull the zipper just slightly away from the seam. So I'm pulling the exterior parts this way and the zipper towards the other way, and that just gives it a nice little, it helps keep it straight. All right, both sides are attached. Now we're going to move on to the gusset ends. I'm going to just trim, this is almost 3/8 of an inch, so it's going to cause problems. So I'm just going to trim this part down a bit, because otherwise I risk not catching my zipper in this seam. Before we move on to adding the gusset ends, we need to add our zipper sliders. So if you've seen some of my other videos, you've already seen this, but when I look, so my zipper is flat, it's nice and straight, there's no puckers in it. So I take a look at my zipper to see which coil starts first. So my right hand coil starts first, then left, right, all the way down. So to keep it like that, so I open it up, and when I put it back together, I want it back together in that order. So I'm going to start with my zipper slider on the right hand side first. I'm going to slip the left hand side in, and then I'm going to straighten my zipper slider a bit. Pop it down and pull it. Have a look at this after, and I have my right, left, all the way down. It's even. The other way you can tell it's even is there's no bulge, like one side isn't bulging more than the other. So this one's on straight, so we'll go do the other one. And again, I've cut it so that the right side's first, then left, right, left. So open this one up as well. I'm going to put the slider on the right hand side one first, and then the left. Make sure it looks pretty straight. Push it down so it pops. It's caught on something. Push it down so it pops, and then move the zipper slider, and I've got it right. So move this in a bit. Again, you can tell not one side's not bulging any more than the other, and move them both to the center. So there, we've got our zipper sliders on. We're going to add our gusset ends. So in the pattern, Carissa describes, you put on the exterior, you baste it on at 1/8 of an inch, then you put the lining on and sew it at 1/4. I'm going to do, because it's small enough, I can do it all at once, so I am. My panels, because I couldn't get into right into the 1/4 inch, I'm a scant 1/4 inch, my panel, if you can see, is about almost 1/8 of an inch too big on either side. So I've taken this panel, the little gusset end, I've done a snip in the center. I'm going to match that center up with the center of the teeth in the zipper. I'm going to grab a clip, and I'm going to clip it out to either side. All right, so then I'm going to grab a lining piece, and I've already marked the center of this one, and basically do the same on this side. I'm looking to find the center of the zipper, and you can kind of see where the two pieces meet. So I'm going to center it in the zipper there and put the clip back on, and then just include it in the clips out to either side. So now we're going to sew this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm at a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Okay. And I'm going to do exactly the same for the other end. So I'm going to find the center of both pieces, take the center, find the center of the zipper, and clip it on. That's the center? No, that's the center. Okay, that looks better. and clip it on. And do the same for the lining. Oh, I've got the lining one snipped. So center of the zipper, include it in the clips, and then a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now I'm going to take the pieces and press them out away from the zipper. Just like we did on the sides of the zipper panel, we'll do the same on the ends. So I've got them pushed aside. I'm going to put clips, a couple clips just to hold it. Do the same for the other side. So push it away from the zipper. Push it away. Clip. And now we're going to top stitch with an 1/8 of an inch. So put it back on a 5-stitch length, and I'm going to top stitch along here with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. With all of this top stitching, if you're not comfortable with doing an 1/8 of an inch because it's too close to the edge, it does take some practice. Feel free to do it at a 1/4 of an inch if that makes it easier. I just completed a bag the other day that I top stitched the whole top of the bag at a 1/4 of an inch, and I've been sewing for a while. So if you're new to sewing and an 1/8 of an inch doesn't work for you, then do a 1/4. But I would recommend keeping it consistent so it looks nice. Alright, so I need to go and clean up this excess. I'm going to go take it to my cutting table with the straight ruler and my rotary cutter. You can do it with scissors. I'm not great at cutting a straight line all the way across something like this with scissors. You could take a ruler if you wanted to do it with scissors. You could take a ruler, go from, keep it along that edge there and that edge there, and mark it off all the way. Mark it with a pen and cut along that mark if that works for you. I'm just going to pause the video and then go do this with my rotary cutter, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've cut them off all nice and straight. Got even edges all the way around. So now I'm just going to baste at an 1/8 of an inch with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, joining the lining and the exterior pieces to be one, because we're binding this bag, so we need to join the pieces. So I'm just going to pick a spot to start. It should all be within the seam allowance, so you shouldn't see any of these stitches. And I'm going to go all the way around, back stitch, and then we'll move on to the next step. Gusset panel done. So just like the gusset panel, we need to join the exterior. I didn't do it right off the bat because I wanted to put my cork label on, and then I forgot to mention it, so we'll do it now. It's not too late. So I'm just going to put these pieces wrong sides together, trying to match them up nicely. It doesn't really matter, I guess, whether we match up those seams. It just feels better to me. So as long as we can keep it pretty even. So my exterior piece went a little wonky, I guess, with the embroidery. I'm going to try and smooth it out as best as possible. So I'm just going to go and clip around, and then I'm going to stitch it around it just like we did that, and then we'll move on to joining the pieces. as you can see, my panels aren't quite the right size. The lining panel is a little bit larger. Not much I can do about that right now. I'm just going to trim it off and hope that it doesn't affect the fit of the gusset much. I'm not sure where I went wrong. So there we go. We have the exterior, and we have the main panels, and we have the gusset panels. So I'm going to find, matching up these little seams there, I am going to find the center of both the gusset and the exterior panels. I mean, some of it we already know, like this is should be the center, and I believe, yes, we've marked the centers on these pieces. I'm going to double check them because, as you saw, things can shift and what was center can change. So I've got those centers. I'm going to fold this over again, matching up the seam and clipping it. Just going to match up those center seams and make a snip here. We had the little tiny snips, but I decided I wanted bigger ones. It's easier to see. So now we've got everything marked. It's time to join it. So I'm going to start with the side of the gussets, so the short ends of the gussets, and the short ends of the gussets go in where I have my center seam here. So if you just cut this one panel, you would have to find your center marks, but because I had the two panels and I stitched them together, I have an automatic center line. So I'm going to take the notch in my gusset panel and put it right sides together with one of the edges of the main panel. I'm going to take a clip and put it in, pull it around. I think I'm going to go to the other side right now. It's going to move a little. I guess you have to put them really tight together to keep it from turning. So now I'm going to grab the other side where the other notch is and match it up with the bottom seam on the other side, and then put a clip in it. Couple clips. Now we're going to move on to the center. So I've got a center snip there, and I have a center snip in my lining, or in my gusset. So I'm going to put the snips together, and I'm going to clip it towards my gusset because I'm going to sew this with the gusset side up. So put a couple clips in, and I'm going to start moving my way around and clipping all the way around. So easing the gusset around these curves. If I need to, I will stop and make little snips in so that the fabric can spread a bit. So like here, it's a little tight, so I'm going to make little so I'm just going to make little 1/8 of an inch snips about every 3/8 of an inch. See how that goes for now. If I need to add more, I can. And yes, I am cutting my basting line, but that really doesn't matter at this point. It was just trying to get this together. So this, try and ease this into the curve. So by putting the clip in it, it spreads it out so we can get it around the curve a little easier. clip. And I take my fingers and I push the fabric up, the gusset fabric up to try and meet the edge, and I put a clip in it. I'm going to put lots of clips in it. So there's one side. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing all the way around this side and all the way around this side, because we sew them in all at once. It's one continuous loop. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back and we'll sew it. All right, there we go. We have it all clipped up around, and as you can see, I opened the zipper to help get in to the spots I needed to. So now we're going to move on to the next step. All right, for this next step, we are going to baste this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around the whole bag. So I'm just going to pick a spot, probably a flat spot like here, get it under my needle, I'm actually going to put it at a 3.5 because we're not going to be taking this out. This is staying. And I'm going to back stitch to lock in my stitches. And then I'm going to go all the way around. Again, like I said, with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, pressing stuff out of the way as I go. And hopefully you can see this. And I'm going to use my stiletto to help me around the corners. Help keep the fabric in place. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do all this, and then when we come back, we'll work on the binding. All right, we'll see if we can see any better from this angle. It's hard even for me to see to get these things out of the way. So keep going. And yes, before anybody says anything, yes, I could staple it, but I don't want to because I have cut myself more times than I care to remember on staples in things. So I would rather do this. And time to go around inside and see what I've missed. It doesn't look like I've missed much, if anything at all. Look. Oh, yeah, I missed some there. Anything else? Haven't gotten close enough in some of those spots. Hopefully, when I put the binding on, it will get closer. Alright, for now that looks like the only spot that I need to fix. Hopefully that's it. So I'm going to start a little bit back a little bit in the stitches that are already there and try and stitch over, like close up, but not go too far in because I don't want it to be wonky because I stitched in too far. Back stitch and then see if that caught it. Yeah, that caught it. All right, so I'm just going to trim off my threads. Just going to take my scissors and go over any spots. Like this is a little higher than it should be, so I'm going to cut it back just to the edge to make these as even as possible. I don't want to cut any of the seam allowance off. I'm just cutting off the extra bits to make it even, because trying to put binding around something where you've got extra sticking out. So down here I've got some extra. It seems to be just on the rounded spots, so there and here where it kind of went off a little bit there. All right, that looks pretty good. Clean up my mess, and now we're going to move on to the binding. I think I'm going to leave it this direction. Hopefully you guys could see that a little bit better. So I'm going to get my binding out and get ready to go with the binding. Alright, so we have our pouch, and I have some pre-made binding. So I'm just going to use pre-made binding because I have it. You can make your own. If I were doing waterproof canvas lining, I'd probably put waterproof canvas inside. So I'm just going to snip off my end even. And then I'm going to fold it over like that and fold it back. So I have purchased the bias tape extra wide double fold. There's 3 yards here. I won't need 3 yards for this little pouch, but I had it on hand, so I decided I was going to use it. It doesn't completely match, but it's good enough. All right, so I folded it over. And now I've got to pick a spot to start. I think I'm going to start down here. And the thing with pre-made binding is it has a seam, like it has a fold already in it. Actually, I'm not going to do that. It has a fold already in it, in the center, so it makes it easy to find the center to just fold things over like that. So I am going to put up a bit. I'm going to start clipping, and I'm going to match it up with the center all the way around. And actually I think I'll put it towards the gusset again, and just keep going around. And I'll do this, and when I come back to when I get to the end, I'll show you what I do to finish it. Alright, so I have the binding most of the way around. I want it to overlap. So I am going to take this end and just fold it under a little bit. And I'm going to put a clip in it for now. It's going to end up getting moved. So I need another clip here. And then I'm going to take the piece that I have, I'm going to go past where I folded off before. So the other piece is right here. So I'm going to go past it a bit, cut off the extra binding. I'm going to take this, fold it over, and then wrap it around over top of the other piece. So it does get a little bit thick. I've tried to go past it so that I'm not overlapping the binding right on top of itself. But so this is what we've got for binding. I want to say something right now. Binding is not my strong suit. It takes practice, a lot of practice, and I need more practice. So we'll see how this turns out. But this pouch is a very good size pouch to practice on, and you can do it it's a quick sew. You can do it several different ways, and it doesn't take a huge amount of binding, and they're cute. So anyways, I am going to start. Where am I going to start? I'm going to start actually just up. I'm going to start in here. I'm going to start just up from, because I think starting down here might be tricky. So I'm going to start on a straight edge here. Actually, I'm going to start at the top on the back, because how many people are actually going to go and flip it to check inside to see where you started and where you stopped? So I'm going to do it on the top part. I'm going to start at the top. So I've changed my thread to somewhat match my binding. It's a navy blue. This is more of it's a little lighter, more of a denim. And I'm going to stitch it at with a quarter of an inch seam allowance. So hold my threads. And then I am going to go all the way around like I did when I was doing the basting. And I'm going to use my stiletto to try and hold the binding in place, especially around these corners. I'm probably going to get puckers in these, but it doesn't really matter. When you folded this right side out, the binding is going to be tucked into the corners, and it may pucker anyways. So I don't think anybody's going to really open it up and inspect your binding to see if it has any puckers or not. Anyways, I'm going to go all the way around, and then we'll come back and finish off. so mine already slipped off, so I'm just going to back it up a few stitches. So just use my snips to back it up a few stitches. And then I'm going to put it back evenly again, because it slipped from being the center. It slipped from being centered. This is a difficult area to get around. I don't think it would probably be better if I didn't have the table on, but I'm trying to show it from a perspective of somebody who has a table. So I'll clean up those threads later. I'm just going to try and get it back on the machine under the needle without it slipping too much. And I apologize if I get my head in the way in any of this. All right, now we just want to clean up any threads that from where we needed to clip and where we needed to restart, if I can find it. Oh, in here. So I'm going to clean up these threads. And now I'm going to go around and look to see if I missed anything. Doesn't look like I missed anything, which is great. It's not the neatest stitching. It doesn't really matter. So now I am going to start pushing it right side out. So grab the bottom and push nice and rounded. Flip the gusset zipper panel out. And go all the way around. And there we go. It's going to take a little bit of working it in. But otherwise, I think it looks really, really good. A few stray threads. But I think we caught all of any basting we've done. I don't see any basting except that little bit. A little bit there. Try and snip it off. I'll maybe get it later. So yeah, go around the edges and look. It looks pretty good to me. All right. So now we're going to zip it up. And there we go. There's a cork, all done in cork, a saltwater pouch by Needle and Anchor Patterns, all done in cork, dual zippers, looks great on the inside. If you really wanted to see, you can push it out, but if you look in, I don't even know if you can see in, it does kind of pucker anyways, just because the way it sits tucked up in there. So if you get a pucker here and there, it doesn't matter, as long as you don't miss it getting stitched down. That's the important part. Just make sure you get your binding stitched all the way around, that there's no holes. All right, there we go. Saltwater pouch by Needle and Anchor Patterns. All done. Really cute gift. This would be a really cute gift. It should be a pretty quick make. I've had to stop and start a few times with this video, but if you were to sit down and do it all at once, I think it would be a pretty quick make, and it's a really cute pouch. It'd actually be really nice with like a laminated cotton, so you can, or a waterproof canvas lining, so you can wipe it down. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you could subscribe to my channel, that would be great, and hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks.